got? No, really, his mic's not on.
Oh, really? I guess.
Do you know how to turn the mic on? Here we go again. Ah. Hire that man.
Good evening.
Evening.
On behalf of Chancellor Deborah Saunders White and Provost Johnson Acton, who expressed their regrets for being unable to join us at St. Board of Governors going on right now. Administrators, students, faculty, staff, and alumni of North Carolina Central University, I would like to welcome everyone to this evening's event, promoting access to information for all humanity. The celebration of the 75th anniversary of North Carolina Central University School of Library and Information Sciences, a jewel in the crown of our university. I would like to especially thank Dean Irene Owens and her supremely talented faculty and staff for organizing and executing this wonderful event. But I will not overstay my welcome here on the stage by taking up any further time to elaborate on the immense achievements of the school in their 75 years. But I do encourage you to read the history and the brief history of the program. So that's all I have to say for the welcome, other than welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the 75th anniversary celebration. Celebration lecture of School of Library and Information Sciences. Let me begin by saying that the ultimate goal of the 75th anniversary celebration of the School of Library and Information Science is to showcase the school's accomplishment in education, research, and service to the state of North Carolina and to the nation. That the faculty, staff, students, and alumni have made during the last 75 years and will continue to make in the future. Our success as an academic institution is a tribute not only to the people who work and study here, but to those who came before us and on whose shoulders we stand, like Dean Annette Louise Panazzi and many others deans who served this school. And now we have Dean Irene Owens, who graciously will introduce our speaker, President Courtney Young, President of the American Library Association, ALA. Before I call on Dean Owens and call her to introduce our speaker, let me just say a few words about her. Dean Irene Owens received her master's degree in library science from the University of Maryland and another master's of arts degree from Howard University and a PhD in information and library science from the University of Carolina, North Carolina, from the University of Carolina,
Chapel Hill. She has held several positions at Harvard University in Washington, D.C., and also served as a consultant in the United States and abroad. She has edited 2 books and authored several book chapters and articles. She has also received several honors and awards. Among them are DEMCO, DCLA, the Black Caucus American Library Association Award for Excellence in Librarianship, the National Council of Negro Women Incorporation Award for Distinguished Professional Achievement, UNC Chapel Hill Distinguished Alumni Award, and Texas Excellent in Teaching Award. Recently, she was appointed to the UNC Press Board of Governors and to the Committee on Accreditation of the American Library Association. Since 2005, for the last 10 years, under her leadership, the school has made tremendous progress in enrollment of students, in introduction of new specialization in the areas such as the digital librarianship concentration, in expansion of online program, in the introduction of faculty-led study abroad program to Denmark and Sweden. In short, I am proud to say that after 75 years of successful academic program, the school is in good hands. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to call upon Dean Thomas to come and introduce our speaker, President Courtney Young.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdullahi. I must say of him, he has meant so much to our program, to our school, and to the nation. He is easily one of the most distinguished members of the American Library Association. He has been involved in not only the American Library Association, but also the International Library Association, International Federation of Library Associations, and has done extremely wonderful work. But we wanted to get the president of the American Library Association to come to us, and I mentioned it to him in faculty meeting. He said, no problem, she'll come. And I think it is because it's very difficult for someone in the American Library Association to say no to Dr. Abdullahi because of his passion. Let's give him a hand. Started it, and there are students here who will be going again to Denmark this summer. And thank you so much, not only for that, but for all that you do. He teaches our global library systems course and is also the author of a textbook that is used around the world for international librarianship. My task really is to introduce the president of the American Library Association. And I really am still in awe of her. For someone to have started out in 2002 and to have done the work that she has done, moving into becoming president of the American Library Association in such a short period of time is beyond remarkable. She is only the 3rd African-American woman who has served as president of this distinguished association, and there have been 2 African-American men. May I remind you that the American Library Association was started in 1876. And it took 100 years for there to be an African-American president. That is not to downplay anyone else, but certainly an achievement for a profession such as ours. Now, Courtney Young was elected in 2014-2015. A portion of her platform has been not to necessarily create create something that she felt was absolutely new. She decided to stand on the shoulders of others who came before her. And she took as one of her major platforms to continue the work on diversity. She defines diversity broadly, and in her mind, a programmatic priority for the American Library Association. With that, she has created a special committee to address the issues of diversity. She states, and I quote, "I believe diversity is an essential value for everyone working in a library or pursuing a degree in library information science or a related field. Librarians that have the most significant impact on their communities understand and embrace the importance of diversity. These showcase their librarians, information professionals, their staff, and volunteers as members of a vibrant community, and their library as a place where difference is welcome." She continues, "One of our greatest resources is embracing and celebrating the diversity of voices within our association, to build a symphony of voices committed to diversity. And that structure that she created is entitled Diversity Membership Initiative Group, or MIG. By harnessing diversity within our association, President Young writes, we will increase our opportunities to be successful at building professional organizations that best serve our growth and libraries that will never lose their relevance. As Scott Page notes in his book, The Difference, How the Power of Diversity Creates Better Groups, Firms, Schools, and Societies. And I quote, "When a collection of people work together and one person makes an improvement, the others can often improve on this new solution even further. Improvements build on improvements. Diverse perspectives and diverse heuristics apply sequentially. One gets applied after the other. And in combination, 1 plus 1 exceeds 2. End of quote. Of special note is President Young's work in the New Members Roundtable of the American Library Association. How better else to begin reaching newly minted information professionals when they first start attending the American Library Association meetings, so that they will be guided well in getting involved with the association and being of service. President Young is often in the air traveling from presentation to presentation and from coast to coast, nationally and internationally, and probably does a lot of her thinking work in high places. Yet, much of her work as a tenured professor in women's studies and also working as a practicing information professional takes place on the ground at Penn State University. Penn State has been labeled one of the public Ivies, meaning a publicly funded university considered as providing a quality education comparable to those of the Ivy Leagues. It has the world's largest dues-paying alumni association. And as an aside, given that this is our 75th anniversary, I really want to figure out how they have the largest number of dues-paying alumni members, because we want to do that. Much is also known about the students at Penn State. One such instance has to do with the fact that whether in the parking lot before classes or on Facebook, Penn State's students chased down librarian Courtney L. Young to ask for advice on their research projects. This is partly because she's a master at making connections. This is quoted by a person at Penn State. She exemplifies the skills our library leaders need to connect library services to their communities. She also brings sensitivity and diplomacy to her dealings with others. Those skills are among the reasons she was promoted to head a librarian for the Allegheny campus at Penn State University. Her publications and presentations are numerous, addressing several critical issues of information professionals. Of particular importance to her is the Two of her important publications include What's Next for Virtual Reference, Technology Predictions, and Virtual Reference, Teams, Collaboration, and Knowledge Sharing, Access in Time and Distance. One of the many things represented in the literature about Courtney is that she is in harmony with what she teaches and upon what she gives advice. In other words, she practices what she preaches. Take her leadership, for example. She started out wanting to learn medical structures and services and to give back, beginning in 2002, and to have earned the presidency in that short time, as I said, is a remarkable accomplishment. Her published writings and presentations in this era include From Professional Leadership to Leadership Professional. And that is one of the articles I want to share with our students. Among her many roles, Young serves as an academic advisor to Penn State students, coordinates the Honors Program, works to improve university-wide virtual reference services, and evaluates and tracks diversity of the library's acquisitions and also their services. She also incorporates diversity into her many publications and presentations, and you will know many of those. Here's one last thing to note that brings her leadership full circle, and that is her involvement nationally in advocating for legislation on behalf of libraries. The list of those bills and acts that she works on, I think she will talk about herself. For some reason, I feel that I have talked a lot about her. She warrants all that I could say and much, much more. So, President Young, thank you so much for joining us, and may I present to you the President of the American Library Association, Courtney Allen Young.
Good evening.
Good evening.
See that a number of you have done what students often do, so you're starting in the back, going up towards the front. That's okay. Dean Owens, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. So I was listening to it, I was thinking, is that me? Is that me? Very much appreciate that. And thank you as well to Dr. Abdullahi for seeing me one day and saying, you must come. And I said, okay, I will. And then I got an email following up and being able to make this work. And thank you to all of you, because I know that everyone is incredibly busy. And so for you to take the time to be here this evening, to listen to me and then have conversations with me, I really do appreciate it. So let me also start by saying congratulations. Congratulations on your 75th anniversary. Of course, yes, it's a reason to celebrate, and there is much to celebrate. During my afternoon here, I was able to have lunch with some of the students, and wow, did they leave me inspired, invigorated. I'm excited about the present, and I'm excited about the future of this profession. I'm looking forward to having all of them join me as colleagues. So there is much to celebrate here at NCCU, and I'm very glad to be able to be part of this celebration. In your program, you do have a celebratory letter from ALA's Office of Accreditation, and I want to add my congratulations to that letter, because this is significant, particularly as, you know, historically black college and university to have a library school program. You all have that distinction, and it's incredibly important. And, you know, with me being the association's only 5th African-American president, I'm really very honored and humbled to be here. While other library schools, many of whom are no longer in operation, also educated and trained black men and women to become librarians, particularly during the early to mid-20th century. NCCU is clearly part of that strong legacy that I have an obligation, although not a graduate, to represent, and I'm very pleased to do that. So again, thank you for inviting me to speak and be a part of what is really a milestone event. It's a real honor for me. In my current role as the ALA president, I'm working with members of the association from all types of libraries and all types of library-related roles. So we go from volunteers to students to library staff, librarians, retirees, library school faculty, trustees, the list goes on, to work with all of these different people to highlight areas of interest and emphasis within ALA's mission and vision. And those things are diversity, career development, and engagement and outreach. And that was what I talked about when I ran for president and what I've been strongly focused on as I move forward. I believe that these are the things that really bring value to the association and to the work that we do in our libraries. They also help us have a positive impact on our communities. And it's really come to help me as someone who's still very much a frontline reference librarian, who's head of a library in an academic setting, to work on the front lines with traditional and non-traditional age students who come from all around the world. And it's really allowed me to help me do my job better in providing instructive reference services, develop our collections, and run a departmental library even better. I'm able to do that because of the things that ALA allows me to do and supports. Of course, my relationship with libraries began at a very young age. I am a lifelong library user. And in many ways, I feel that's what brought me to the profession. I have memories of going to the school library when I was in class and picking out books to read. I participated in summer reading programs, which was always very exciting, but bittersweet when it ended because summer reading was over. But then I discovered that it didn't have to end just because the season had changed, that I could continue to read books. And that was so inspiring and motivating. And I did just that. My first job when I was a teenager, 15 years of age, was shelving books at a public library. There were signs, I should have realized it. But, so I shelved books at a branch of the St. Louis Public Library where we were living. So my emerging technology skills and my interest in customer service, aka my ability to be very talkative and social, extended to that shelving role, and I was able to start helping out at our service desk as well. And then when I went to college, I worked in the library for all 4 years. During my sophomore year, I decided, I think I'm going to go into libraries. And then when I was a graduate student, I worked at a theological library. So my continued and deepening understanding of libraries, it really transformed me into a reader, an employee, a lover of technology, a collaborator, and an advocate. In all these roles, I came to really appreciate the impact of libraries and library staff on a community, because there's tremendous impact. And while the library doesn't always create library employees, it always has the potential to create lifelong learners, library advocates, and ultimately to transform lives. We're well into the 21st century, and people, who use our libraries, their experiences span from the 20th century to the 21st century. But they need and they deserve 21st century libraries. Libraries of all types, public, academic, school, special. They all play a critical role in supporting the needs of our users. We see an increased demands for different types of services, resources, and spaces, hand in hand with the need to educate on basic as well as emerging technologies. Our ecosystem of libraries, as Jim Reddick once put it, speaks to the importance of all types of libraries transforming. And just as I moved from being a school library user to a public library user to an academic library user and then a librarian, for me that demonstrated the potential that libraries have to create and foster lifelong learning. Now, libraries are a vital link in a chain to connect people with the information access and the critical resources that they need to support education and lifelong learning. So education, employment, entrepreneurship, empowerment, and engagement. This is something that ALA's Washington office has framed as being the 5 E's of libraries. And they're the necessities that libraries play a critical role in providing and supporting. Libraries then are indispensable. They're absolutely indispensable in supporting the needs of their community members in virtually every aspect of life. Every single aspect of life. Through these 5 areas, education, employment, entrepreneurship, empowerment, and engagement, librarians and staff are positioned as leaders on issues that are vital community priorities, making advocacy for libraries even more important. So in January of 2014, the ALA Executive Board identified 3 strategic directions for the association: advocacy, information policy, and career and professional development. Now, our mission and our values have not changed, and they probably will not change. So those strategic directions are working on our need to reaffirm these values while building on a long tradition of commitment to the library community, libraries, and the public that we serve. As we plan for the next 3 to 5 years, we want to make sure that we continue to actively pursue our goals, promote our core values, and move the association and libraries ahead. So when it comes to advocacy, ALA aims to advocate for the public value of librarians, libraries, and information services, and seeks to focus on ALA's mission and priorities, working with 3 key constituencies: our ALA members, libraries, and the public. The key transformational components in this area are building support for libraries and librarianship through public awareness. Because if you were someone to ask you, who is a librarian? What would be some of the stereotypes that would come up? They're not particularly interesting, they're glamorous, they're probably very dated. They probably wouldn't say, that Courtney young person, she's a librarian. Or even sort of the public awareness of libraries. Do we still need them with Google? They're still libraries? They're still important? So that public awareness piece is incredibly important. Providing a vision of innovation, enabling the future of libraries, and promoting libraries as centers of community engagement and participatory librarianship. And promoting ALA's core values and emphasizing the impact of libraries to form the basis for advocacy and community conversations. By focusing our efforts in the area of advocacy, the association can support libraries as they transform. An effective advocacy campaign on behalf of libraries of all types will remind their communities of the vital role, the very vital role that their libraries play, raise their community profile, and ultimately build libraries. In this area, ALA aims to advocate for the public value of libraries, librarians, and information services, and seeks to focus on ALA's mission priorities in 3 areas, in those 3 areas. It's incredibly important that we keep that as a foundation of what we're doing. This is going to provide a strong foundation which libraries of all types will be able to build. Now, one of the advocacy areas that I think we need to work on more, and that is a real touchstone for me, and that the association can play a strong role in, is the importance of diversity, and diversity as an advocacy point. Now, diversity is a programmatic priority of the association, and it focuses not only on fostering the diversity of the profession, which of course is incredibly important, but also working to ensure that we are serving and welcoming all segments of our populations. Now, diversity and librarianship, they really do go hand in hand. That's been my perspective, and will continue to be my perspective. And I think it's really essential, as Dean Owen said, for everyone who works in a library or is pursuing a library degree to have that focus and mission related to diversity. That transformational piece that's going in our libraries, there's an element of the support for diversity that runs through it. But of course, the definition, when you're talking about diversity, is often something that people don't agree on. So what exactly is diversity when we're talking about libraries? I think that while operationally we have a sense of what it means, but we don't always agree, and there are sort of some, well, I don't know if that should be on the list. I'm not sure that that really fits in. But I know broadly that we can often talk about it being race, gender identity, gender expression, national origin, ethnicity, religion, social class, age, sexual orientation, physical and learning abilities. And this reflects all the ways that our communities exist and are changing, and with the invisible becoming a lot more visible. Over the course of my career and my involvement in state and national associations, I've come to realize that libraries are probably the richest source of diversity in our communities. And I would even go as far as to say that libraries are the richest untapped source of diversity in our communities. It's a place that the potential for positive understanding, inclusion, and equity to take place. And certainly with the events that have taken place in the Ferguson Library, in St. Louis, Missouri, and in some other communities, this is truly being reflected as the case. That library became a really strong source for diversity, for the community, and for our profession. But then, of course, as we're talking about libraries, there are some other components that also go hand in hand with the types of diversity that we sort of start to list. So the various types of materials that we're dealing with: printed books, e-books, electronic materials, born digital things, streaming media. All of these things are adding to some of the diversity of complexity in terms of access to information. Sometimes you have people who are just kind of looking for the books. And so this shifts to electronic acquisition, which we do very much of it in the state, challenges some people. And it creates some barriers. And those challenges with diversity sometimes tend to create barriers. Then we think about the services that we're providing in our libraries. Those are also key when it comes to diversity. We think about the people who work in our libraries, be them volunteers, librarians, people with library science or information science degrees, our staff with other degrees. All those folks come with different perspectives, and there are often sort of pieces that challenge us with regards to the diversity of our libraries and what librarians do versus what staff do, and those types of things. We're very complex in terms of what we're bringing to the table when we come into our libraries. And it's that complexity of differences that challenges us, but it also at the same time makes us very special and unique, and we have a real opportunity, I think, to harness those things. So let's consider some of the diversity within our libraries that are incredibly important. One of those things is going to be collections. The collections that we're developing for our library users. We're not developing these collections for us. We're not developing them because we're supposed to. We're developing them for our community users. And sometimes it's because there's that strong demand for those materials. And sometimes it's because there's an incredible need because there is a gap. So developing our collections is really important. So whether or not you're doing it through some sort of approval plan, you're selecting each book title by title, or some people's very favorite way to acquire materials, they've been donated to your library. Building that collection has to represent all points of view. It's incredibly important. So the 1990 Diversity and Collection Development Interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights states that, and I quote, "Librarians have an obligation to select and support the access to materials on all subjects that meet, as closely as possible, the needs and interests of all persons in the community which the library serves. This includes materials that reflect political, economic, religious, social, minority, and sexual issues." So it's important for libraries to have a real clear plan when it comes to collection diversity. The collection development statement makes up a piece of that plan. You have to think about it as your advocacy tool for a multitude of formats, topics, and voices. As you select materials for your collection, again, whether they're things that you're purchasing or that are being donated to your library, you want to be sure that diversity is woven into those statements for every single area. The plan can also assist you in monitoring and assembling your collection, leading to the quantitative and qualitative methods for analyzing the information and get a better sense of not only how much of your collection is diverse, but the type of effort and commitment that you're making to diversity. People often worry about, when you're talking about diversity, particularly with the collections and materials, that it's a way for you to say, oh, you know, we're not doing this work, or we're not getting this wrong. I like to think of it as an opportunity to celebrate what you're doing and recognize the opportunities to do more in developing your collections. It's also good for you to have that statement, but it's the responsibility of everyone who's working in your library and developing the collections to focus on it. So you don't sort of delegate that task to one person. Everyone who's building the resources that are part of your collection. And if that's buying materials, evaluating donated materials, if it's building the database collection that you have, or even linking to other materials on your web page, it's really important for you to take that into consideration and make sure that there's a diversity of material and perspective that's there. The selection, when you're successful with collecting for your collection, with regards to diversity, everyone is contributing. Of course, 21st century collections aren't just about those books and periodicals. It means that you're getting DVDs with subtitles so that people who have English not as a first language and are learning or don't quite have the understanding can read those subtitles. It also means having transcripts for those DVD materials so that they can be used with a screen reader or other devices so that everyone can truly get access to it. It's about having those digital video recorders, video cameras, tripods, so that we can empower people to be content creators. Those iPads and Kindles that we need to facilitate access to digital resources, because we know that the digital divide is very real, that there are a lot of people who cannot get to things that are on the internet, and they're relying on the libraries in their communities with high-speed internet access and computers so that they can get to that information. And for libraries to take that next step and lend those electronic devices so that people can access that information is going to become more and more important. It's also about expanding your collections as well and having other types of materials and resources available. Lending unusual objects is something that is becoming more and more prevalent in libraries. There's a library, for example, that lends baking pans, and I'm someone who enjoys baking, so I find this very interesting. But think about it. If you people in your community who need to bake an Elmo cake or a SpongeBob cake, and they do it once and then the next year the kid wants Disney princesses, you have this baking pan in your collection. What are you going to do with it? Well, there are libraries that are now saying, bring it to the library, we'll have it available, and someone else will be able to check that out for the one time they need to do that cake. So our collections are starting to get very interesting in that way. Musical instruments are being lended out. Tools are being lended out. It's about providing people access to things like JAWS and other screen reading, adaptive technologies, and creating that compliant ADA access to your facilities as well. Now, ALA stresses the importance of developing print and digital collections that reflect the cultural and linguistic diversity of the local community, including bilingual materials. And as it has always been, it's about having personal services and assistance from people just like you, experts, to help people find the information that they need. Even with all of these technologies and these components inherent in developing a diverse collection, you, as an individual, are also an incredibly important component to that practice. So libraries and librarians are critical to family literacy and multicultural awareness. Library programming is a real opportunity to foster both intellectual as well as cultural enrichment. Events like speaker series, One Community, One Book, teen film festivals, gaming for senior citizens. These are all examples of library programs that not only bring communities together, but they also provide opportunities for diversity and inclusion, particularly when you consider that libraries are designed as a destination for all of those groups to participate. Everyone is welcome in our libraries. And many people, as I mentioned, depend on their library for access to resources and information. And as more and more of that information goes online, the ability to connect is of increasing importance. Who here in the room has a friend or a family member who doesn't have access to the internet at home? How about someone who doesn't have smartphones, like an iPhone or Android? You know someone, a friend or family member, who doesn't have those things. There are still a number of people who don't have access to those resources. So the assumption that we can just put things online and make them available is probably not the best assumption to make. And for those folks, the library is a great place to bridge that gap. And thankfully, as things evolve, libraries are also working to keep up with those changes so that we can provide people with the resources and services that they need and fulfill their role in society. So the demand for library services has increased significantly with this growing need related to access and training to digital and online information. This includes our e-government services. If you need to apply for Social Security, you have to do that online. Continuing education resources. Think about how a number of you are taking classes. You're probably relying on electronic resources like computers. So in the next decade, it has been estimated that nearly 80% of jobs will require digital skills. Yet the FCC estimates that more than 60 million people lack the digital literacy skills that they're going to need. 60 million people lacking digital literacy skills. And given what I'm about to note to you about our changing demographics, I think that libraries really can be at the forefront of closing what I believe to be a very significant gap. Now, if we think about the demographics of the United States, they have changed and they're going to continue to change. And that's going to have a real impact on our communities and all the libraries that we're working in. So in 2012, the U.S. Census Bureau numbers showed that the population aged 5 and under was 49.9% minority. The non-white population increased by 1.9% to 116 million, which is 37% of the U.S. The fastest growth is among multiracial Americans, followed by Asians and Hispanics. Non-Hispanic whites make up 63% of the U.S., Hispanics 17%, blacks 12.3%, Asians 5%, and multiracial Americans 2.4%. It's also really important to remember that we have growing immigrant populations in the United States. And these new Americans are turning to their libraries for information to reinforce English skills, communicate with their families back home, search and prepare for jobs, and to help their kids do better at school. Library programming and resources help to ease that transition for new Americans. And ALA, in partnership with Dollar General Literacy Foundation, supports the American Dream Starts at Your Library initiative. And these grants allow libraries to improve literacy skills to adult English learners, offering ESL, literacy, and citizenship classes. It's increasing bookmobile services to reach new and diverse communities, because for a lot of those people who don't even have a library in their community, the bookmobile is a source not only of books, but bookmobiles are extremely high-tech these days. Some of they probably could be technomobiles at this point, because they're filled with the technology that people need. So those bookmobile services, and expanding our collections. So trends indicate that the U.S. will become a majority-minority country in a rapidly approaching future, and communities nationwide are seeing demographic shifts that impact programming, collections, outreach, and staffing. And of course, these figures don't provide us with other snapshots of dimensions of diversity. So for example, the physical and mental disabilities are becoming increasingly visible. The 2012 Disability Status Report from Cornell University indicates that 12.1% of the U.S. population has a disability. If we're looking at our library profession, the American Library Association's Spectrum initiative to recruit a diverse workforce is providing scholarships for men and women from underrepresented groups to attend an ALA-accredited library and information science program. And Dean Owens hopes that more and more of these students are going to be selecting NCCU to get that education. Spectrum also aims to, and I quote, create a representative composition of librarians to serve the needs of multiple diverse communities. As of June of 2014, 881 scholarships for Spectrum had been awarded by ALA. And I say to you now to stay tuned to the ALA making an announcement about increasing the number of Spectrum scholarships we're going to be able to offer. And so while Spectrum, as a method of recruiting diverse populations to the profession, and it's been a very strong way for ALA to do that, it's the start. There's more work to be done. In my presidential column, which is in the January-February issue of American Libraries, and Dean Owens actually quoted a bit from it, I invited members to join that newly created Diversity Member Interest Group, or the Diversity MIG, which is available through ALA's Connect site. It provides a launch pad for members dedicated to fostering an improved climate for diversity within their libraries, the association, and the profession. I'm also working with ALA's Office for Diversity to design and launch a diversity portal that will be accessible via a link on the top level page of ALA. This is the one thing that I really hope to accomplish. Other organizations, libraries, associations, when you go to their main page, there's a link at the top that says diversity. Though diversity being a programmatic priority of our association, there should be a top-level link that says diversity. There hasn't been a top-level link that says diversity, and it is my goal for us to get that link and that launch pad going so that we truly are putting our money where our mouth is and are reflecting the importance of diversity in our profession. So that page is going to also be a way for us to demonstrate what's going on throughout the associations related to diversity. It won't only include materials from the Office for Diversity, but it's going to pull up resources from various divisions and offices as well, the ethnic affiliates of the association, to really pull those materials together and highlight that the association is committed to diversity. And for those who are in the communities that are becoming diverse, and they recognize that the library is an important piece, an important component to serving those populations, as a starting point to get the resources, materials, and inspiration that they need to better serve those communities. Libraries preserve our nation's cultural heritage. They advance research and scholarship. They support literacy and lifelong learning. They foster innovation and creativity. All while embracing and usually juggling a variety of formats and changing resources to accomplish that goal. The American Library Association's goal is to see that all Americans have the information that they need to live, learn, work, and grow. We could not make any progress towards that goal without your current and future leadership in building the collections, services, resources, and facilities to advance that goal. The work that's done locally in your respective communities has a tremendous and profound impact on our ecosystem of libraries. And when you share your ideas and your successes at various conferences, in your newsletters, your blogs, on social media, your peers are inspired and have new ideas for community outreach, therefore continuing a dialogue that strengthens those relationships focused on engagement and the fulfillment of aspirations. And that, for me, is sort of the most rewarding part of being a part of this profession and this association, is the opportunity to speak with all of you, talk about what your ideas are, talk about the things that you've done, so that I can get excited about what I can also do for my community to match what you're doing, and hopefully then inspire you. So the work that you do is essential to advocacy, library advocacy in particular. You provide the compelling stories for me as ALA president to talk about with the media. And it's your stories, the things going on in your communities, the importance of your library, the importance of working with someone so that they could get their GED, so that they were able to start their business, so that they were able to put together a resume and apply for a job. It's those stories from those interactions that you have from the people you know so well, that those journalists and bloggers, decision makers in government and administration, that they want to hear. And it's been my real honor and privilege to tell those stories. And it's also your stories that help provide an answer to the question that I hope that we can stop hearing of, why do we still need libraries? The work that you do is the answer to why we still need libraries. So as library advocates, we know the value of libraries and what that value means for our communities. So in addition to providing those inspired and desired resources and services, there is a need for greater external engagement among all of our library partners at all levels of government and all commercial entities to articulate that value. So whenever you get a call to say, tell your congressman to support this for libraries, to fund libraries, to establish libraries, to call your representatives, please make that call, because if you don't make that call, that funding will go away. And it's because you make that call and because you communicate to the people who you know in your network to make those calls. Libraries get funded, and hopefully the funding for libraries also increases. So I ask you to please embrace the importance of advocacy for libraries and librarianship, but also please embrace the importance and the critical role of diversity, inclusion, and equity in libraries. As advocates, we know the value of libraries and what that value means for our communities. In addition to providing all those resources that people need, it's essential for everyone who's operating in the 21st century. It's a changing citizenship, it's an exciting profession to be in, and diversity is that one little thing that makes it just a little bit better. Thank you.
first like to have the faculty of the School of Library and Information Sciences to please stand. Because without you all, we could never do tremendous group of people, and I'm honored to work with you. Next in line, of course, are our students. Would you please stand? The students from the School of Library and Information Sciences. Congratulating us, the ALA office, the chancellor of this wonderful university who's at a meeting that she could not be here, the UNC Chapel Hill School of Information and Library Science. I mean, how special you are. Would the dean please stand? Some of you may or may not know that when the Department of Library and Information, Library Science, was established in 1939, there were few trained and educated persons. And it was an honor for Dr. Shepard to call upon the UNC Chapel Hill School of Information, and we actually shared the same dean between 1941 and 1947. We still have a wonderful relationship. Dean Marciani, thank you so much. I also get to work with him on diversity, along with Ms. Claudia Gallo. Yes. Sandra Hassel, and it's a wonder, and also Gerald Holmes. Gerald, thank you so much. I'd also like to recognize Gerald. Will you please stand? This year, the American Library Association awarded Gerald the Achievement in Library Diversity Research Award. He is a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill and is the leader of the Diversity Committee. There are other deans who were expected to be here. The last minute there were some changes. And I believe that for UNC Greensboro, I had a call today that they would not be able to come, and also one from East Carolina University. But we do have a student from UNC Greensboro. Thank you so much for coming. We also have close relationships with the University of South Carolina. The dean called me and said she would not be able to come, but Jennifer Orange, where are you? Thank you so much for being here. And we have another person in the audience who had the privilege to work with the very first African-American president of the American Library Association. She now continues her services. Apparently her work with that first president must have run off on her. The Detroit Public Library. She is Margaret Morris, and she serves as the president of the Friends of the Shepherd Library. Thank you so
much. We had a slogan. You spoke of advocacy, and the Friends of the Shepherd Memorial Library are advocates for libraries, and certainly the University Library. And we are pleased to be able to do them, and we want to say welcome to the University of North Carolina. Thank you. Yes.
President Young did such a wonderful job of showing the thoroughness with which she approaches her work, the tremendous service ethic that she provides. But more than that, she reminded us well of the digital divide. When we think of libraries and technology, not all people have the same access that we have in this room. One of our jobs is to both educate and train persons here to help to bridge that divide. In emphasizing leadership here, we have the director of the Durham County Public Library, Ms. Tammy Baggett. Tammy, where are you? Tammy, we're so proud of the work that you do in helping to make technology and access to information so much more available than it would be if you were not in that position. Thank you. We also have Susan Brown, director of the Chapel Hill Public Library. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you also for hiring our students. I'm sure that there are some people that I have left off. So charge it to my head, not to my heart. And one of the reasons that I probably am stopping, I have to recognize Dale Cousins, who has also served as the president of the North Carolina Library Association, who is one of our graduates, and she's here. Thank you. And especially the Leadership Institute, and one of our other graduates who serves as a librarian at the School of Information and Library Sciences, one of our distinguished alums. And now I really want to get to the music. And I'm going to recognize Mrs. Wiggins first. Would you please stand? This is why Dr. Ira Wiggins. Thank you. When I was doing research on Dr. Wiggins, I did not know that at one time the saxophone was not viewed as an instrument for academe. And then I realized that probably one of the reasons that was true is that people had heard him play. Because he really is such an outstanding musician. He received his PhD in music education from UNC Greensboro. He's a winner of many awards, including the Walter J. Norfleet Award for Outstanding Service to the Arts and the UNC Greensboro Jazz Education Service Award. He has played with such greats as Nina Fremont, Vanessa Rubin, Ellis Marsalis, I know, and I'm just so pleased that he's doing a musical tribute to this wonderful School of Library and Information Sciences. And I'm sure that he will let us know what it is. If we don't recognize it, tune right away. Thank you so much. After he plays, I don't think there's much else to be said except for final remarks. Because when he finishes, we'll probably have to air out the auditorium for a few days because the sound will be so loud.
This composition is a jazz standard that's probably at least 75 years old. So it goes right along with the celebration of this great occasion. It's entitled, There Is No Greater Love. And also, my accompanist music partner, Mr. Arnold George
Thank you.
Theodosia Shields, and the staff of the James E. Shepherd Memorial Library. And last, by no means least, most library schools have a student chapter of the American Library Association, which helps to prepare them for leadership, and I'd like so very much the president of the student chapter of the American Library Association, past and present members, to please stand.
Thank you, Dean. On behalf of Chancellor Deborah Saunders White, President, okay, this thing is moving. My apologies. All right, Provost Johnson, accolade. I would like to again thank Dean Owens and the super faculty and staff for a great program. President Young for delivering a fantastic message. Dr. Wiggins and Mrs. Joyce for a phenomenal performance. And once this stops moving, I will, all right. Are you gonna help me out here with? No. And most of all, thank all of you for joining us in support of the 75th anniversary of the School of Library and Information Sciences. God bless and good night.